I was shocked. I was surprised. I was very happy because I was, deeply in love with my husband. And my husband, well, he wasn't my husband at the time. We were boyfriend and girlfriend. But when he found out that I was pregnant, he totally flipped out and lost it. And it was very hurtful to me, but he's like, well, you can always get rid of it, have an abortion or whatever. And I'm like, after suffering 10 years of infertility, I am not about to give up a child. I'd rather give you up and keep the child. And you don't have to support it, you don't have to do anything, but I'm going to have this child and I'm going to love this child. And a little back story on that. When I was with my first husband, and we had been going through our fertility problems, after I went into the hospital to have some work done on my fallopian tubes, they said they were scarring, so they removed that. And I had been trying for like another year to get pregnant with no success, and just the stress of it, I just broke down, and I was crying, and I was by myself and I was crying. My husband was at work and I was crying, and I was like, oh God, I just want so badly to have just a child. And it was like God spoke directly to me, and he said, don't worry, that you will have a child and you will name him Samuel Jacob. Because earlier I was pregnant, but I had lost the child, and but God said that I would have another child, and his name would be Samuel Jacob, which means Samuel means asked of God, and Jacob means to replace another. And these are things, God spoke this to me, and I had not read any of this in the Bible or anything, so that's why I know that it was truly God speaking to me and telling me, that I would have a child. And after that, I didn't stress out about it anymore. I thought that I was going to have a child with my first husband. Yeah, but you just cannot plan these things. But I had one, I got pregnant with my second husband. And so we ended up having a child, and it was a boy. And I named him David Samuel Jacob, which means beloved, asked of God to replace another. And David was the name of my second husband. So anyway, okay, so he was upset about it, and we actually broke up about it. And I went through my pregnancy, and I guess maybe like at about, I must have been in my 7th month of pregnancy. And he came to my apartment that I was living in at the time, and he said, I freaked out. I was afraid, I'm getting out of the military. I don't know what's in store for me, but I want to be a part of this child's life. I want to be with you. Can we try again? So I said yes. So shortly after we had the baby, we got married. And things went along okay for maybe like the first year and a half of our marriage. My husband was in the military, but he was in the Army. And I guess maybe like about the year after we had been married, he had a nervous breakdown. He was under a lot of stress at work, and he just totally flipped out and lost it. And I had never seen anybody like truly lose it, or like have somebody with a mental illness or something like that. I had never witnessed anything like that in my life. And came to find out that he was suffering from bipolar disorder, which if anybody knows, it's a horrendous disease. It's devastating. It's truly devastating. And there is medication to control bipolar disorder, but the side effects of a lot of the drugs can make you feel like you're walking in a fog, or that you're not operating at full capacity. And the thing about when you're suffering from bipolar disorder is that when you're in that manic state, you can do fantastic things. You can do wonderful things. You can do almost superhuman things. You know, he finished his master's program in computer science in which was a 3-year program. He finished it in like a year and a half, you know, and he just running on, you know, 2-3 hours of sleep and studying, and, you know, just being like an animal going after his degree. When I look back at it now, I understand that that was him being in a manic stage, but it hadn't presented any like negative effects. I'd say like, oh, how can you get along with so little sleep? You know, I mean, I need 8 to 9 hours of sleep to even be able to function reasonably. But after he had his breakdown, he refused to take his medication. And it was really hard for me to understand why he wouldn't do it, because I told him that, you know, that I'll be with you, I'll stand by your side, but you have to take some kind of medication to bring you to control, because over time he just became more and more erratic in his behavior, more and more manic episodes where he would be destructive, violent, all sorts of things. It was horrible. I would never wish that on anybody. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. But he never wanted to take the medication, and I had a really difficult time with that. But we had a child together, and I wanted my child to know his father. And it wasn't until, I guess my son was around 11 years old, and we had never lived together after he had the manic episode. We never really lived in the same household again, just because he was just so totally out there and so out of control, that I couldn't live with him. I didn't want my son to be in that kind of environment where he never knew from one moment to the next what was going on or whatever. But, you know, my son finally said at 11, you know, he's like, Mom, if you're trying to maintain some kind of relationship with Dad for me, please don't, because, you know, it's just crazy. And it was at that point that I knew, okay, I can't do this anymore, and I got a divorce. But like I said, we had been separated almost 8-9 years before I got the divorce, and I didn't want to get a divorce because I didn't want to fail again. Of course, who wants to fail? And I didn't want to bring any other man into my my household with my son. I didn't want him to have like another father figure or a stepfather or anything. I figured, you know, he's had enough trauma or whatever just to live with his father on the surface. I am going to be selfless on this and not be in any kind of relationship. And from the time that my son was born until the time that my son was in his last year of high school, I never dated. I never went out with anyone. It was just me and him. It was me and my son, and that was it. I mean, I never hired a babysitter. He went to daycare, of course, because I had to work. But if I wasn't at work, it was me and him. Me and my son. We were like this, you know. And we had a really close relationship. And for anybody that is has children and is wondering, you know, oh, should I not be in a relationship? Should I not try and pursue a relationship until my kids get older? I think that is the best gift. If you cannot be with your husband, or the father of your children, I think the best gift that you can give your child is to be remain single and make them the focus of your life, and be selfless for that 16 to 18 year period until they are grown. You will never regret doing that. I don't regret that at all. But okay, my son, I have to say I was very lucky. My son was the type of child who didn't want to go out, stayed home, didn't date when he was 15, 16, none of that. Turned 17, last year of high school. All of a sudden, he's like, Mom, I'm going out, I'm going on a date, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. He's never home, never home. And then I sat and I said, I'm alone. I am alone because my son now has his own life, and I'm sitting up here in this house with no one, no prospects of anything, nothing. You know, what are you gonna do? I'm 48, maybe 47. I think it was 47 at the time. Yeah, 47. A 47-year-old black woman. What are the chances of me, a 47-year-old black woman, with my criteria of what I want for a man, that I am going to find anybody?